Something happened in November when ChatGPT made it open to the general public and 1 million people signed up in the first 4 days or whatever the data was. In a sense, what ChatGPT does is allow you to have a conversation with a computer that would be human-like. And that's really what's going on with this. And whereas you may have used chatbots when you get to a website and they say, how can I help you, or do those kind of things, and we kind of find them mostly annoying. Well, this is a completely different experience.
I mean, it's good, right? There's been AI around for a while. This is not the first one, but ChatGPT is significantly better than the other technologies before it. This is something that's caught people's eye, and it was free, whereas some of the other ones before cost a lot of money. I mean, I knew marketers were using Jasper AI. It wasn't as good and it cost quite a bit of money. How are recruiters talking about using this in their work?
Well, you have some people talking about how to find people and identify lists of people and so forth. That's been pretty well protected by ChatGPT. They're really sensitive to GDPR internationally and the kinds of laws in the US that would protect people. So there are ways around it, and people are using Bing Chat to do that, which is built on the ChatGPT and OpenAI platform. But where I see the most usage immediately, and company after company is making announcements about that have recruitment platforms, is to use it in communication, to use it in email. LinkedIn is developing a way to use its version of Bing Chat to communicate in a very personalized way, to send emails to people. I've seen 3 or 4 announcements just this last week on companies that are going to use that for email templates. And so it's going to start small. There's going to be baby steps. The one thing about these kinds of things in AI is you have to train the algorithms. A client of mine, Seekout, that I've been consulting with for a year and a half, I was curious what ChatGPT would say about them. And so I asked ChatGPT, who was Seekout? And they told me what Seekout was, but they gave me 2 co-founders that were not correct. ChatGPT wants to please. And so if it can't find the truth, it'll just make things up. And so that's one of the downsides of this tool. So anyway, the first time I tried it, it was incorrect. The second time I did it, 4 days later, I said, what is Seekout? And they gave me Anup Gupta, who's the co-founder and CEO, and Arvind Bala, who is the CTO and co-founder. So it came back with the right name. So I guess that's part of how it learns.
I have not found it to get better when I ask it to do the same things. I'll have to keep trying. You know, in the resume writing world, people are all talking about how you can use it to write a resume and a cover letter, and I'd love your feedback on that here in a minute. But I've found that it can write a cover letter, but it's very generic. It's pulling from templated content that's available in its data set. And when I ask it to customize it, I almost feel like it got worse because it inserted in the company name, but in a way where it was really obvious that it was just inserting in the company name into a templated letter. So I've struggled with, yes, it can write a generic starter for you, but it's still not something I would want my clients to use, because we know that cover letters that are generic are kind of the bottom of the bucket as far as cover letters go. Are there any things you're hearing out there about using it for the candidate side?
What I'm seeing are theoretical kinds of conversations about it. So if you ask Bing or ChatGPT different things about itself, it'll spit out a lot of information. And some of those are very futuristic, I think, in terms of what it's going to be able to do to help you plan your career and that sort of thing. But I think as we teach people how to use prompts and how to be able to ask the right questions, someone once said that an English major is going to do better with ChatGPT and AI than an engineer would, because they would ask the right questions. And so what I like about ChatGPT is you could ask it, I'm a psychology major in college, what are my career options? And it would go through and give you 8 or 10. I mean, I've done that, and so I know the answer to that. It's the next step in that. Okay, so let's say I want to be a clinical psychologist. What kind of education do I need, and so forth? And the one thing that both Bing Chat and ChatGPT don't have is experience. So they're missing that human experience kind of thing that we're looking for. So I think in terms of brainstorming ideas, it's useful, and with a few machinations, be able to reach out and generate a list of people people that you could contact, LinkedIn profiles of people who were targets for that job seeker. It's going to take a little bit more experience and some more experimentation, I think, by people and get those conversations into the mainstream. I think then we'll see a lot more practical uses for it. But it's kind of fun and it's kind of scary at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll
Well, and
see.
I know that in the HR space, I mean, AI has been used in many different ways for a long time. And so it's a new tool, but it's not the only way that HR is using AI.
When I was at Lockheed Martin, we had several different AI applications. I think the biggest time saver was being able to set the appointment schedule for somebody coming in to interview. And we used some AI from a company called Paradox, and it worked really well. I mean, I can't tell you how many hours mind-numbing work that it saved from coordinators setting up those interviews. We had an internally generated or developed tool that would allow us to drop a person's resume into the AI box, so to speak, and we would be told or informed which jobs they were better suited for. So that was pre-ChatGPT and so forth. So we're seeing a lot of that job matching kinds of things going on. And I think as we think about where it'll fit in AR, it's really going to do a lot of the administrivia kinds of tasks, the redundancies and so forth. It's going to be able to answer questions and point people in the right place to find the documents they're looking for. And so I think it's going to change the kind of work that we do. And I think that's the most challenging thing for people that are in the workforce is they may not like change. And I found that anytime I was working on a project where it involved HR tech and implementing some new systems and some new processes, that was where I got the most pushback on the implementation of it. It's just people don't want to change. And I think that is going to be one of the top skills we have to have in the workforce is the ability to learn something new. It's very fascinating, just to put it in a little context, that in a couple of years, 75% of our workforce is going to be millennial and younger. And so part of, I think, that ability to learn is going to rest on a different generation than I am. I was reading a survey on the future of work that Dell did along with a council, and the research said that 85% of the jobs that will be in 2030 have not been invented yet. One of the things that I think is going to happen is ChatGPT is going to make us better at our own jobs. And I say that because ChatGPT and other large language models of AI are going to be as good as an average career counselor, as an average doctor, as an average mechanical engineer. So the information that I'm going to receive from Chat is going to be average. It's not going to be exceptional. So it's going to force us to provide the experiential kinds of commentary. When I think about all the writing that's done about stuff in HR and in talent acquisition, the ones that put out a laundry list of 8 points that you need to do to build a talent pipeline or to do that, I think that's going to go away. That's where Jasper, that's where ChatGPT, that's where other things can spit that out in 30 seconds. It will force content writers to write differently. And I think if you stretch that sort of application across different professions, it's going to have that kind of impact.
Well, and as a consultant, and as I tell my coaches, it isn't about the how, right? A coach isn't about
Yeah.
telling someone how to do something. That negates your value as a coach, because even before ChatGPT, people could go on the internet and find out how or what could I do with this major. It's walking people through the internal process that happens when you have to make change, which, as you have said, people struggle with. And when you're doing consulting, the same thing. It's not that they don't know how to implement an HR process or the 8 steps to talent acquisition. It's that they have to get everybody on board and they have to make sure all the stakeholders
Right.
feel included. And there's so many people tasks to that make it much more difficult than just knowing the 8 steps. And those are the things that we as coaches and consultants are going to have to get better at communicating our value outside of the 8 steps. That's
Right.
not ever where our value really was, but we've got to get away from communicating it that way because, as you said, it's not going to be differentiating anymore.
I think that's one of the value propositions in recruiting is that using HR tech and AI in recruiting is going to allow us to spend more more time on that human to human relationship. And the same thing ChatGPT said about career counseling is that's one of the things that it's going to do is it freely admits it has no empathy, freely admits he or she has no experience with a topic, and warns of the dangers that they might be inaccurate. But it's exciting to be on that change. I read a quote that was attributed to Bill Gates that said that ChatGPT is going to have the same impact that the internet did on us. And if you were around for as we sort of transitioned from non-internet days and moving into how do we leverage what we do professionally on the internet, and then as we saw sort of that next iteration of the internet where we had personalized kind of relationships and built community and that sort of thing, I think that if you think about how ChatGPT is going to make everything more personalized, and we're going to provide the expertise of the experience, then that partnership is going to go a long ways. And I think that a few years from now, we're going to be shocked at what we used to do that's now done by a computer, and what we're doing, even though I can't tell you what it's going to be, we're going to have to hold on.
Well, and I'm excited that you're joining us in San Diego in a few weeks to dive deeper into these topics. Of course, people that are there in person are going to get the opportunity to engage with each other and engage with you and ask questions. And we kind of wondered during COVID, right, would the in-person events stick? And I've only done one in-person symposium that I've led myself, but I've been to a few other conferences since we got back. And it's kind of that difference that you're talking about between ChatGPT and the human. To me, the virtual versus in-person relationships have that similar difference, that you can get a lot out of a virtual event. But there's just something when you get in person with people that makes the relationship different and makes the learning different. And I'm just so excited to see you in San Diego.
I'm looking forward to it. It's good to get back and mingle with people again, because I think that human contact and the hallway conversations that we have and so forth are where you really learn the most and you deepen those relationships. And so absolutely looking forward to San Diego.